something that really frustrates me is with like the Hollywood system and how they're hiring people coming in, writers that don't necessarily have the skills to write the Hollywood blockbusters, but they're in there because they're diverse and they're ticking boxes. And it's happening across all of society. I know that films are the least of our concerns because it's happening in the banking systems. And I know you've faced lots of issues with banks recently. But do you think we're actually moving away from equality? Because it's not a quality of meritocracy, is it? It's to do with ticking a box at the end of the day.
I have a dream, Martin Luther King said. Possibly one of the greatest, if you haven't heard his speeches, I'm sure you have, but you should. And I'd urge the audience, Google Martin Luther King, have a look. His oratory was so good, it was almost like singing. I have a dream that one day my 4 children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Right? So I grew up in the 1980s, when I was a young adult, in the 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher believed that it didn't matter whether you were Jewish, whether you were Christian, whether you were Asian, black, whatever. Didn't matter whether you'd been to university and got a degree. Didn't matter whether you were humble, working class, or aristocratic. You got on according to ability, hard work, honesty, and decency. This was a meritocratic society where people were able to move and advance and get on. And we're now chucking all that out of the window with this idea of rights. I'm black, I'm Asian, I'm gay, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. We must have quotas. The banking sector, now full of idiots. Full of idiots. People promoted not on ability, but on ethnicity. We've got to get away, or gender, or whatever it may be. We've got to get away from all of that, or we're never going to achieve our goals as a country. And, the white male, you lot, are going to feel that the world's against you. And Andrew Tate tapped into that. You're going to feel the world's against you. You're going to feel resentful. You're going to feel angry rather than being optimistic and hopeful for the future. These are massive cultural battles. And I'm not pretending that I can wave a magic wand or anybody else can. But I think before you can solve a problem, I think you first need to identify what it is. And I believe that's what it is.
To look at the other side of that, if we're not hiring people from different diverse groups, do we then end up with a society that is ultimately controlled by one type of person?
No.
Which then affects, the young people in those diverse groups, which won't have as much opportunity later down the line?
It is possible that certain diverse groups through culture will do better than others.
Yeah.
Look, let's be frank about this. If you grow up in this country in a Hindu family, the chances of marital breakdown are very small. The chances of educational encouragement are incredibly high. The culture within that family and community, that hard work, achievement is everything in your life, is at a different level to the rest of us. It's just a fact. And there are other community groups who would place different priorities. But I'm going to pick out a positive, not a negative example. Because if I pick out a negative one, they'll all scream at me and say I'm ghastly. So there is no doubt that if you're born a young Hindu male or female today, your chances of success, age 25, 30, are far greater than if you're born to a white working class family on a council estate in the north of England. And much of that is cultural. So why do we need quotas? Things have to sort themselves out. The biggest divide in Britain is not through races or sexuality or gender. The biggest divide in Britain and the biggest prejudice in Britain is class. And the ruling London classes, the people that wouldn't have us for this podcast, loathe the working classes. They despise the working classes. How many working class people in Parliament are there? How many working class accents do you hear in Parliament? Almost none. That's the big divide in this country. The absolute snobbery and frankly, sheer hypocrisy of our ruling classes. They go on about diversity and this and that and the other, but if you're white working class, you can go to hell.
So do you think they've broken people down into these different groups to stop the working class becoming so powerful because they're in their little groups, can I say it, the gays, the blacks? Well, I don't even know what I can say nowadays because I don't want to offend anyone, but that's the problem, isn't it?
I tell you what, do you know what we ought to do? Do you know what we really ought to do? Let's start treating them all as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, they're all human beings, and we'll treat everybody equally, provided they're fair with us. And if they're not fair with us, we will discriminate against them on the basis of their behaviour, regardless of what their background is. We all discriminate. We discriminate when we choose friends. Let's treat everybody as equal. If we don't have a colourblind approach, given the ethnic change in this country, we are headed for the most horrific divisions. And I think we're beginning to see it already over Israel, Gaza, the street protests. I'm very, very worried about these divisions. I really am.
The way we speak about the UK, especially in this podcast, makes it seem like quite a murky place, and the future of it is certainly uncertain and a little bit murky as well. Are there any other countries or societies out there that are doing it right, in your opinion?
The whole of the West's in trouble. The whole of the Western world's in trouble. As we argue and fight over whether a woman can have a penis or not, as we battle over these things and argue in Parliament over these things, what do you think our enemies think? What do you think the Iranians think, or the Chinese think, or Putin thinks? They're laughing at us. They're laughing at us. And great civilizations are brought down, not normally through invasion. They're brought down through internal division. You can go back millennia to see great empires that fell. And the West's in danger of falling, not because of the outside military threat, because of the lunacy that's happening within. But I remain an optimist. I believe that if you study history, social pendulums swing one way and then can swing another. And I am seeing much greater hope in this 15 to 25, roughly, age group than I see in the 25s to 35s. I'm beginning to see young people actually getting it, understanding that this stuff isn't working. So I've far from given up on these great battles. I'm worried and concerned for the future, but we can turn this around.